So wrestling becomes more and more important, especially no-gi. Like that's where the meta is going right now. It's a multi-tool you will be able to use in many different situations, right? Wrestling up is big right now, and there's a reason for that. It's quite effective. So wrestling will teach you certain skills that you can use pretty much everywhere. Like nothing teaches you structure, base, posture better than wrestling, okay? It will help you tremendously, especially the hand fighting portions. The single leg is one of the best multi-tools in our sport. Like you can use it from pretty much everywhere. So you will do yourself a disservice if you don't put time into wrestling. The problem, however, is it's hard to start out. Like you all know that when you've been training for a while, like wrestling is for most people has been always the thing that's like, oh no, let's not wrestle. You know, it's exhausting. It's highly dynamic. Like it's really hard to get a good entry into if you just start wrestling, right? So you need to focus on certain areas and build off of that. So we're gonna play a lot of constraint-based games with a certain rule set, task focus offensively and defensively, and then you will be able to actually learn with timing, because that's what's hard about wrestling. Because we're standing, everything is highly dynamic. People are gonna move quick. You don't have many positions where you just can hold people for long periods of time because you don't have the floor. Like that's the whole point of our sport, is putting people onto the floor so they're not as dynamic anymore. So that means the timing needs to be on point. Like you need to go quick, and that's not very beginner friendly. So now we need to try to find ways to make it more beginner friendly, so people that haven't started wrestling when they were 5 can actually wrestle and play the game. Does that make sense for you? So one really important thing for the games is you understand the starting point, you understand the task focuses, so you know what you're supposed to do and try to abide by the rules, right? And if it doesn't work for whatever reason, talk to your training partner, right? If you don't understand it, ask me, right? It's nothing worse than you don't know what to do, okay? So we're gonna start super fundamental. We're gonna start with leg exposure. We have different exposure forms, and the class will be mainly about leg exposure. So getting a leg and lifting it up, more or less, okay? And we're gonna work progressively towards that goal. We have different forms of exposure, and if that's all you're gonna take away, then it's already good, because you need intermediate positions where you can actually attack takedowns off. If you just try to spam takedowns, you all know that's not a pretty good strategy, right? So if I have Willy here, we have different forms of exposure. Like we have leg exposure. I can try attacking the leg, lifting it up, and proceed to takedowns from there. We have back exposure. Like try to get the back and take him down from there. Then we're center line exposure. Where like I try to get the body lock from the front, and we have head exposure. So if he's slow, like I can expose the head and attack from the head. That's the main exposure forms we have. Now we need to find ways into those positions, right? And the things we're gonna work on first are very universal. But we're gonna start with leg exposure because that's the most direct one at the beginning. And that's what is easiest for most people from the start. Because you don't need a lot. You need a straight line between you and your partner's legs. So you can actually attack off of that. So the first game we're gonna actually play, if I have Tom and Billy here, is one plays guard. One has a broken stance. A broken stance just means he's standing properly, but he has his elbows extended away from his body. Now Tom is just gonna move around, switch legs. And Will's whole purpose is to level change and grab a leg, right? If he can grab a leg, lift it up, he's gonna push and get into good position again. So don't do what he just did. Don't let go and just stand up straight. So if Wille does it again, he wants to get it up, push away, and be in a proper stance again. And Tom can keep moving. So always remain in position. Never break your position if you can. Tom additionally has the task to move away his leg if it's attacked. So villain needs to switch off to the other leg to come up and go from there. Do what you can. You know how to do single legs, double legs, head outside singles, whatever. Like whatever you can, do it. Just get a leg and lift it up. If you get both legs, lift one leg up or lift both legs up. Just don't take your partner down. Okay, it's a very simple game at the beginning. We're gonna switch after 2 minutes. Is everybody clear on starting position and your focuses? You wanna clap? No? Yes? Yeah? Oh. Yes? 1, 2. Okay, a little bit of feedback. Most of you on the defensive side were not doing enough. You were just standing there. You wanted to move and pull legs back so people can actually practice to get the right timing of grabbing a leg and lifting it up. And if it's pulled back, I need to switch legs. If you didn't do that, you missed an opportunity to learn that skill. Because if you're just staying there statically, and someone picks your leg up, it's like a dry drill. There's no resistance, there's anything in it. And we want to learn the timing of things. So we need to practice with time. Otherwise it will not work, right? So I have Wille here. My arms are open because I'm not touching him in any way. My arms are not between us because I want him to give him the possibility to just attack my legs right away without my arms being in the way. That's why I'm here. Okay, so now we are moving. I'm switching stances. I'm not staying statically here and he's just gonna pick it up. That's not what we're doing. Okay, I'm moving. And if I see he wants a leg, I'm gonna pull it back. So he needs to switch up to the other one. And if he doesn't get it, we just continue. That's part of practicing. You don't have to succeed 100% of the time, right? So when he's here, he wants to have it, I'm gonna move, get it away. Sometimes you 3-4 times till he get it. Only if he doesn't get it at all, I'm gonna give him some leeway. But you're gonna start with 100% and go down if it doesn't work at all. Everybody clear on that? Okay, very good. So I saw that many of you penetrated the knee. So you dropped down, you did a penetration step. Your knee touched the floor. Why do you do that? Does everybody know why? Anyone has an answer?
Push into
Extra push. So how fast can you run on your knees? And how fast can you run on your feet? So you can push on your feet, right? What's the reason? Why do we penetrate down?
I want my center of gravity as far below him as possible.
Changing, why do I need to change levels? Have you heard of lines of defense? We have defensive lines. The first line of defense is the head. If I cannot beat the head, I cannot attack the legs. So if I had head position and Wille tries to shoot, I'm not gonna give him that because my head is in the way. He doesn't have a line to get there, right? So when I'm standing really, really low, he has to come under my head somehow. So if I'm standing relatively upright, he just has the level change and he's in on the legs. If I'm low, he has to come under my head to attack me. That's why we penetrate. That's one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of deep penetration steps in MMA, because we're standing upright. A simple level change is sufficient. That doesn't mean there aren't advantages to dropping down to a knee even if people are upright, right? Because you can shoot in deep, but you also need to cover a lot of distance. So if it's not necessary, you don't need to do it. It's way quicker to come down and just pick the leg up. Also, a shot is not an easy movement. To do a shot proficiently, you need to put in a lot of time. So it's not an easy skill to acquire at the beginning. So it's way easy to just level change, get a leg, lift it up. And only if I cannot beat the head, I need to level change down further and drop the knee. Does that make sense for you guys? Okay, second line of defense. The hands, right? If he shoots He beats my head, but my hands are still in between. I can still move. That's not a sprawl, that's a down block, right? If he also beats my hands, now it becomes baseline defense. Now it becomes a sprawl, right? Those are the first 3 lines of defense. The fourth would be mat defenses. It's a little more advanced, like fun, barrel rolls, stuff like that, scrambling, right? But those are the fundamental lines of defense. So I need to be able to beat the head to get to the legs, right? And because that's so important, we're gonna play a head pummeling game. Because if you cannot get rid of the head, you'll never be able to attack proficiently. So we have 2 neutral head positions, or 3 rather. So if I have Tom and Ville here, if they're in front of each other and they don't have contact, that's the first one. It's neutral, they have the same angles. If they're forehead to forehead without any angle, that's also neutral. The third one is ear to ear. Same angles, they're neutral, right? So we don't want neutral. We want to have a head angle. So if one of them gets an angle, who has the advantage now? In that case, Ville, right? So he has the angle. So for Tom to be able to be offensive and defensive, he needs to fix his head angle. One good way to do that is not just moving, but level changing also. So if he starts pummeling under, he can either remain on the same side or come under to the other side. And he has gotten his head angle back, sometimes to neutral, sometimes to an offensive head angle. And we're gonna pummel with that. You need to constantly fight about head position. Now, I don't want you to headbutt each other, because if you lose contact, it's gonna clap, it's gonna be funny for me, not funny for you, okay? And we don't want that at the moment, I guess. So try to remain connected. Start ear to ear, because the connection of the forehead to the shoulder is easier. Even if you lose it, you're not gonna bump foreheads. It's not as hard, right? So what those 2 are gonna do is they're gonna start ear to ear. And from here, they're both fighting for a head angle. Okay, start please. So both want to get a head angle. They're not using their hands, they want to get a head angle. They're working, okay? No, it's not pleasant, but it's necessary. Okay, you can be mean with it, or you can just be playful with it. But we're just gonna do that for 2 minutes. Just head pummeling, all the time. Okay, and if you cannot get your head back in, you can let your partner. But start with 100%. I don't mean go apeshit, I mean don't let him have angle. Okay, it's a different to just go hard or keep the fight going. Everybody clear on your tasks? Clap again. 1, 2. It's good for your hair.
Oh yeah.
So, the worst partner you can get if you play that game is guys with shaved heads. It's just a little bit of hair, and it's like, it's pretty good. What's the name for it? Schmiegelpapier? Sandpaper, yeah, that's it. It's like sandpaper. Any questions, guys? So, if you cannot beat the head, you cannot attack proficiently, at least not the legs. So now, we're gonna play an offensive and defensive game with one person wanting to have leg exposure, lift the leg up, and with the other guy blocking with the head. So you actually learn how to use your first line of defense to not give access to your legs. And that's a very underused skill in submission wrestling. In normal wrestling, it's super, super common. Like that's the first thing they learn. Because we're standing a little more upright, usually, because of match duration and rule sets, that doesn't get practiced a lot. But it's a very, very important skill to have. And once you learn how to work with it properly, you're not gonna have that many problems with headlock attacks, right? But, of course, be aware, the more down your head is, the easier head exposure is created. So if I have Ville and Tom here, they're going to start ear to ear again because we don't want disconnection. If we have disconnections, they're going to hit the head. So now Wille wants to just grab a leg and lift it up. In order to be able to do that, he needs to beat Tom's head. If he can't beat Tom's head, can I attack the legs? Right? So it doesn't matter how low Wille goes, Tom just holds angle. And he can't place his hands on the floor, that's no problem. So play for it a little bit, you two. So we're really playing, we're head pummeling, we're trying to get to the legs. The other guy's just head blocking all the time, okay? If you feel comfortable, you can head pummel more. If you don't feel comfortable yet, leave the head pummel out, remain neutral. It's easier to learn at the beginning, but you can decide that on your own if you want to deal with that restriction or not. Okay, so we're gonna play 1.5 minutes. One is offensive and the other is defensive. After that, we switch tasks. And for the last 1.5 minutes, you're both allowed to attack and defend. Everybody got the rules? Great, 1, 2. Warmed up yet? You feel like it's demanding, right? It's good. So that means you're working. If it's too easy, it's boring, right? One thing, be a little bit mindful about your surroundings. Because wrestling takes a lot of space, so try to, scatter around equally so everyone has the maximum amount of space. And you have your zone. If you get out of that zone, get back into your zone, okay? Keep that in mind because we don't want to have any injuries. Yeah. So, you see how important head position is? Like if you don't get at least neutral head position, it's going to be hard to attack. And it's going to be hard to defend either. That's why we're starting with that. You're going to mess up head position, everything else will be harder. And it will be a constant battle. It's not like you do it once and then it's over. Like you need to fight for it constantly. And if you're not used to it, it's quite demanding. But it's very, very important. Head position is always important. Doesn't matter if you're standing up or you're on the ground. Everyone knows if I put my head into spots where it's not supposed to be, it can end up badly for me. We don't want that, right? I saw some of you putting their hands behind their back, which is not wrong per se. Because if you feel like I'm doing too much with my hands, like I want to grab something, it can be good to just have the hands on the back. But you lose a little bit of balance. And for the down blocks or head blocks, you need to put your hands on the floor if they go in deep. Because if they go in deep and you just put your head down and they leave, you're going to fall. Right? So don't fall post. Right? Everybody clear on what I mean, or do you want me to show it? Falling? You want me to see falling? Yeah, yes. Okay, great. So now the question is, how can we beat the head? How can we beat the arms to actually get to a leg? It's going to be easier to beat the head if you put fakes in, right? If you just go straight for your positions, people can follow because you have contact. You start faking, it's going to be a lot easier. So try to incorporate fakes. We're not going to do an extra round on that, but just keep that in mind. Because it's a good round to rehearse and just do the same thing, just with fakes and see how far it goes. But we want to incorporate hand fighting now. So why do we need to use hand fighting? To break position, to beat the head, to beat the arms. Because even if I beat the head, the arms are still there. So people are going to block you, okay? And some of you may ask, okay, why is the head the first line of defense and not the arms? Because the arms can reach way longer than the head. So why am I not just here? Right? I cannot reach with the head. So the reason is, if my head gets beaten, I still have the arms I can use to down block. If my arms get beaten, I don't have the head I can use for second line of defense. Yes, the hands have a longer reach, the forearms, depending on anatomy, but you don't have a good backup plan. You lose one line of defense if your arms are beaten. That doesn't mean it's wrong. Don't get me wrong, you don't want to overextend like I showed, but it's not wrong to use those things. But you need to be mindful of that. You need to know the risks so you can actually work with it. Does that make sense for you guys? So now, we're learning a fundamental pummeling game. We're gonna work with inside and outside ties. An inside tie is a grip on the inside of the arm. An outside tie is on the outside of the arm. So we're gonna play that game of pummeling to the inside constantly. And we're gonna do the same thing as before. If you feel comfortable, you can work with head position. If not, remain neutral and just pummel a lot. So if I have Tom and Bill here, they're gonna go ear to ear again. Start neutral. Every one of those guys gets one inside tie. So one is on the inside, one is on the outside, right? I'm gonna do that on both sides. So now they start moving and they just start pummeling to the inside, right? Pummeling to the inside. They all want to have inside space and remain there as long as possible. What they're gonna add is push and pull motion. So we wanna push, we wanna pull, we wanna break the balance of our partners. We don't wanna take them down, but we wanna move them with our ties. So don't just grip and do nothing with it. Use your ties to move and unbalance your partner. Okay, so they're pummeling heads, they're pummeling arms. Leave the head pummeling out if you don't feel comfortable, right? Be mindful of not hitting heads. So now they're playing head to head, which is fine. If you know the risks, there's more space involved, headbutts occur easier. But that's totally fine if you're there. It's not fine if you headbutt your partner and he starts bleeding badly. Okay? Everybody clear on what you guys are supposed to do, where to start? Great. 1, 2. So, where did you feel more comfortable, on the inside or the outside? Inside? So is the outside wrong? It's good for pulling? I can pull with an inside tie as well if I play correctly. What's better? Inside tie. So, there's world-class guys that play on the inside and there's world-class guys who play on the outside. What is more important than the position itself is if you actually control the tie or not. So if I have Billy here and I have the inside tie and he pulls my elbow in, I don't control that tie anymore. It's his tie now. He has an outside tie, but he's controlling the tie. John Smith, Samar said that. That's also something to do with how you're built, like your anatomy. If you're very lanky for your weight class, it's going to be harder to steal inside position constantly. If you're really stocky, it's going to be easier to obtain inside position and hold it for longer periods of time, because there's less space involved, right? So, not one is better than the other. It's like both work, but if you're on the inside, it's gonna be easier for the beginning, for most people. Just because you have, generally speaking, a better lever if you're on the inside than the outside. And trying to get exposure is a little easier. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't invest in an outside tie. Try to get good with it, see if it fits your game, depending on what you like to do and whatnot. But for now, I wanna fight for inside space. I don't wanna give it away, unless I'm aiming for something. Does that make sense for you guys? So now, what we want to create is exposure. If he is in proper position, I'm not just going to grab a leg. But if I have a tie-up, I can open him up. Like there's way more space to get into position and work. Right? So I break his position. That's why I said, don't just pummel and be here. Wax on, wax off. Like, that's not what you want to do. You want to move him, you want to break position. You want to open elbows or cross elbows to gain exposure. Because those are the two main ways we have. Like, I can open an elbow or I can cross an elbow. One is an elbow pass, the other is just opening an elbow. And from there, you have a free line between your head and the leg, so you can attack. So that's what we're gonna do now. We do the pummeling battle as before. Like, both are supposed to pummel for the inside. But one of you guys wants to get a leg. Don't forget, pull your leg back so people start reaching for one, don't get it, and attack the other. People are gonna pull legs back, they're not just gonna give it to you. But if you have good position, you just switch legs. Just go on, try to switch. Don't just stay there and be like, I didn't get that. Just drive through, get the other leg. It doesn't need to be perfect. Try to get it, okay? After 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, we're gonna switch. So the other partner's turn. And the third round is gonna be both are offensive and defensive. So it switches the game. Right? It's easier if I don't have to worry about my defense and can just play offense. But he wants to keep his head in between. He wants to block me with his arms, right? Everybody clear on the rules? Show it shortly, please, guys. So he wants to break position. He wants to get the timing. He wants to get in, or he pulled it back. He reshot. He got in. So it's work. Don't give up. Stay on it. Get a feeling for the timing. Okay. After 2 minutes, we're going to switch. And after 2 minutes, both offensive and defensive. Why do you stop? Both are offensive and defensive. Be mindful of your surroundings. Don't go for a takedown. Just lift the leg, okay? 1, 2.
That was a great round, that, boys. Great sparring you're doing that.
Thank you, mate.
Stay on it. That was good. Now it starts to look like you actually wrestle. It's a good thing. Do you see why we structure it that way? Like if I just tell you, well, just wrestle, take each other down. It's not gonna work well. You're gonna hurt yourself. It's gonna be exhausting. You know, it's just hard, very, very hard. But if you play with constraints, you can, learn better. Not just for wrestling, just for everything else as well, right? So, some of you use thumb blocks, which is totally fine. It's not wrong. But it's purely defensive for the beginning. Like you can create distance with it and then start to get offensive again. But we don't want to thumb block too much. What I mean by that is, if I have Billy here and I'm on the outside and just thumb block him, as long as he doesn't know how to deal with those blocks, it's going to be hard for him to do anything, right? You can post it, you can snap it, you can do things. That would be one of the next things I would show you, but we don't have time for that. We have time for one more round, and we're going to do something else. Because you need something else to make it effective. If you only attack the leg, and people are good with head blocks, good with pummeling, you will not be able to beat the head. And that can be quite frustrating. So what we're going to do is, we're going to snap, right? The head is low. I'm going to bring the hands to the floor and create head exposure. If he doesn't want that, he's going to stay higher. Then I can get the leg, so we have a dilemma. You need to play those two off of each other. Only, and that's a reason for that, only use inside ties, no other ties, right? Because I want you to do it proficiently. So when we're here, I don't have a good snap here, but if I want to get down and he follows, like now, I can snap and I can go, right? So only use inside ties for snaps. No other ties allowed. Don't forget that. So we want to have the same thing as before. One is offensive, one is defensive. So now the thing is, both are allowed to snap. Because if you shoot in poorly, you're gonna get snapped. So both are allowed to snap, but only one is allowed to get to the legs. If we would have more time, we would maybe dissect it a little more, but we only have one alarm left. So we're gonna do 1.5 minutes each, and in the last 1.5 minutes, both can attack the legs as well. So it's the same procedure as before. So, if he's high, I'm not gonna snap him. But if he's low, the snap becomes easy. I just want to get his hands to the floor. That's all I'm gonna do, right? If I get that, I've won. We start over, right? Both are allowed to use snaps, but only one is allowed to use leg support, pick it up. Both need to pummel, both need to use the head, both need to move your partner. Don't forget that. Make it as realistic as possible. Only constrain yourself more if it doesn't work. So if you're not there yet and you leave out head positioning in the sense of head pummeling, then that's fine, right? But if you can, try to connect everything. Is everybody clear on what you're supposed to do? Do you want to see them do it? Yes. Go for it, guys. Can you see how uncomfortable Tom is because his butt is not touching the floor? There you go. See, it's more push-pull motion. Push-pull motion. It's more fight. I'm so glad I didn't see that. Okay, guys? So please don't do the thing like they did. Like, just stick to the rules. Don't be jokesters. Don't hurt yourself. Good? Last round, guys. 1, 2. Good. I know it's demanding, but it will help you tremendously for so many things. Now you can start adding things on. In my opinion, that's one of the best ways to start those things. The collar tie is the most prominent tie in all of grappling. But if we start with the collar tie, it's going to be really hard for you to pull anything off. So it's harder to do. The inside tie is easier to learn at the beginning, and it will help you deal with collar ties also. But that would be the next step, like getting rid of collar ties, getting rid of thumb locks. Then we can start talking about other things, about other attacks, about other hand fighting sequences. But I think this is a great starting point for everyone. And it almost didn't matter how much prior wrestling experience you have, you could all pull things off. But every one of you pulled things off with timing and resistance, which is directly correlated with what you are about or able to do when you actually compete. If you don't do that, you're not going to be able to pull it off. You need to work with timing and resistance. You need to constrain it in a way that allows you to work on things you're not good at yet. That's why we have constraints, right? If you could do everything right from the get-go, it would have been a mess. But because we've structured it in that way, we were all able to actively wrestle. You have an idea, you know what you're supposed to do. If something goes wrong, you might have an idea why. Stuff like that. Okay? We had one question regarding slippage with the arm when it comes to snaps. So if you want to snap, you can't be here, right? You need to snake your arms around. This is a pulling grip. The more in front you are, the more of a pushing grip it gets. If you put thumb blocks in, it's only for pushing. You cannot pull with a thumb block, right? So depending on what you want to have, what your objective is, you change grips. Okay? Any more questions? Okay, hate to say it, but you did good. If you have any questions that emerge, grab me. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't have to be wrestling or whatever related. Just come get me, ask me. Right? That's what I'm here for. I'll be present, so don't be shy. Just grab me. right? Don't talk to him. He's bad. But you can talk to Tom, unless it's wrestling related. He's a Batsky. Right? That's Tom. Wave Tom. Yeah. If you don't mind, I'd like to have a picture. Thank you very much.